All right, if you'll all rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, here we go again. Worked the first time. Welcome to the May 2020 meeting of the Philipstown Town Board. We're continuing to social distance, so we're doing our meeting online. We're all getting a little better at it. I'm still giving John the best background here. I don't know why. I'm trying hard, and it's not working. I don't know. I'll get my oven in there.
There you go.
Committee reports. Conservation Board.
All right, the Conservation Board didn't have a meeting in April, but they attended a number of different sessions, meetings, and so forth online. Some of them involved our actual, what's called the En-ROADS Climate Ambassador Training. Jason Angel and Jocelyn Pacello obviously hosted those two. They were very interesting. This was trying to be able to work out different scenarios as far as climate control goes, to be able to get the Earth's temperature down to 1.5% by 2100. Everybody went into work sessions. That the short of the story is nobody was able to achieve it. I think the best was 1.9. Afterwards, we did receive some scenarios to show it was lower, but clearly everybody came away, I think, with the understanding that it's going to take a lot of collective efforts. We're going to have to work in a number of areas. Obviously, this was energy supply, transportation, land, industry emissions. Growth is also population and economics, carbon removal, obviously tree reforestation, and its health, improvement of its health. So there were a number of very interesting points to pick up from that. So that was good. Something also working on as well was from Roberto Muller, who's obviously our climate smart coordinator, is the fact that we received the executive report to review regarding their consumptive-based inventory. It's a long report, but while it's an executive summary, it has a lot of deep information in it and a lot of things to learn about our town. Obviously, it breaks down to like 78% forests, lawns and fields, 9.5%. Wetlands is only 5%, yet they achieve a great deal of economic benefit for our town. So obviously, these items remove about 40% of our annual community-wide emissions. So when you're trying to take a look seriously at trying to reduce our carbon footprint and get down to carbon neutral levels by the middle of this century, we have a bit of a daunting task ahead. You realize after attending a number of these seminars, along with things that we did with Earth Day last month to attend, was the fact that there's a lot of work to be done, and it really is a collective effort by everyone. The other thing that we realized as well when we went over a lot of information, and we actually discussed our town and control of it, and realized also that about only 50% of our forests are actually, and a third of our wetlands are actually regulated or protected in the sense of our current regulations. So we do rely on the goodwill of our people as well to maintain the forest and wetlands for any size. So there was quite a bit to learn, quite a bit to do this month. Nat's on, so he might want to talk about the meetings we had with Comprehensive Plan. Obviously, we were with the consultant as well, and we covered a lot of areas, and especially into affordable housing and so forth. So while we're not able to meet in person, I think over this last month as a town, I think we've accomplished a great deal. So I'm not sure when we'll meet again, so I won't put it. Well, we're going to try to meet next Tuesday, which will be the 12th, if possible, for the Conservation Board. Thank you.
Recreation.
Good evening. The Recreation Commission is meeting next Tuesday
at 7:30, May 12th. We did not have a meeting this week, but as you know, obviously the programs are closed for now temporarily. And next Tuesday, we look forward to discussing, what the anticipated planning is for recreation.
I imagine as of the 15th, there'll be some information with regard to that. I know that they're not giving out licenses for summer camps yet, so I imagine that won't come out until after the 15th, maybe. I'm not sure. I spoke to Amber last week, and she was still in a holding pattern, as is the whole state. So,
Yes.
But thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Philipstown Hub.
Philipstown Hub had a meeting today, actually a Zoom meeting with middle schoolers for to get them engaged. And we know that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's a difficult time for everyone. We all feel a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, but we're strong together. And I'd encourage anyone to contact the Philipstown Hub if you need help. I don't know if you could see that or read that, but the hub is the resource in our town. Philipstown funds this as well as many private donors. And during Mental Health Awareness Month, when we're all struggling with challenges this year, especially with this crisis, I encourage people to reach out and get the help that they need. And thank you to Daniel Pack McCarthy. I think she's been working very hard to stay engaged with all of the community.
Yeah, more than ever, it certainly was a good partnership to start, and our thanks to Danielle. Planning Board.
Okay, unfortunately, the planning board did not meet the last 2 months, basically. We are planning on meeting on the 21st of this month. I checked with Neil Zuckerman. I checked with Kelly today. They're going to do a dry run sometime next week or the following week to make sure everyone's online and understands how to use Zoom. So I'll have hopefully next month, I'll have a report on the planning board. As we did last month, we did appoint 2 new members. So I'm looking forward to getting them on the board and getting them up to speed. And thanks for them for wanting to join.
Terrific, and thanks for setting that up, Bob.
No problem.
Zoning. You're on. Oh.
Thank you, Seal. Zoning did not meet last month. They will be meeting on Monday night, May 11th at 7:30 via Zoom.
All right. Thanks, John. Highway.
I have the highway report. Stand by 1 second. Here it is. Philipstown Town Board members, work performed by the Philipstown Highway Department for the month of April. It's been a month for the records. Like COVID-19 wasn't enough to deal with, we got a severe wind and rain event the day after Easter. Lots of trees down, power outages, etc. But all roads were kept clear in order for emergency vehicles to get through when needed. Crews followed up with a lot of tree clearing work for the next several days. During this global pandemic, it was necessary to have crews post no parking signs at various trail and parking areas. They are only temporary. Remember, we are in this together and all look forward to their removal only when the time is correct. It is the time of the year when the spring thaw plus too much rain results in plenty of potholes. With smaller crews available, we ask residents of Philipstown for their patience as we keep up with all the road repairs. We will get it done and then everyone can enjoy the improved road conditions. It just makes for a little longer this year. We are awaiting a resolution for a 6-month lease of 2 bays from Richard Frost for the temporary location of the highway department while waiting for a new garage. The salt shed is getting some preventive maintenance done with replacing some boards and a nice new coat of paint. Phone calls to the highway department continue to be light this month. Roughly $7,900 was spent on vehicle maintenance and repairs for the month of April, above monthly accounts submitted by Carl Fresend, the highway superintendent.
Thanks, John. Thanks to Carl. I know it's been difficult for those guys. We did have a meeting up there 2 weeks ago with Justin Caker, looking at the garage replacement program that we're going to undertake. And Justin's going ahead, working on the documents. We're getting a survey from Beatty and Watson so we can mark it up as to what stays and what goes. And then we'll get an engineer on board and move ahead, because we desperately need to do something with that garage. And it's been in the budget now for 3 years. So we're certainly ready to go. I know they've done some prepping back with the rock hammering. So
yep.
we're hoping that this summer we get that, well, we're going to get that underway. We're not hoping, we will get that underway this summer. With regards to trail closures, I know some people aren't happy, but it was a necessity. I mean, there was no getting around that. You know, we had such an overwhelming number of people coming to town, and it was just like the governor said, you know, if you're the only place open, that's where everybody's going to go. And that's where everybody was coming, right to Philipstown. It's just not a sustainable track that we were on there. So I say thank you to the state for closing the trails, and I hope they remain closed until they can come up with an opening plan. But you can't just flip a switch and have the trails be open again, because we're going to be overwhelmed again. We had 6,000 people visit town. We only have 9,800 residents, and it just makes for a lot of friction and a lot of risk, a lot of unnecessary risk. So my thanks to Evan Thompson and Commissioner Cullosade for, you know, hearing our call. And also it was good to be working with Nancy Montgomery from the county, Mike Bowman from Nelsonville, and Mayor Morandi in Cold Spring. Everybody worked together to get that done. It took about a month, but you know, it was a noticeable improvement last weekend. And the enforcement arm of it is in full force. They have a lot of police in the corridor, and they are not putting up with any nonsense. So that was good to see. So I know it's tough on people, but it's a lot tougher on our residents if we have those trails open. And, you know, I'm afraid to say it, but, you know, if somebody wants to take a walk out in the woods, they're not parking, they're not, you know, coming with 10 people, I don't think it's really a problem. You know, the issue was groups of 20 people, the parking was, it was unreal. It just wasn't working. You know, there was no road left. So it's, you know, if you're a resident here, you want to take a walk near your house, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think it's issue if we, again, have 6,000 people visit the town and pretty much destroy the place. That's not sustainable. So our thanks.
Yeah, definitely. If you take a ride up on 90 on the weekends, there's plenty of cops around. Law enforcement agencies from all branches are there. So that's a good thing. Hey, before we get off the highway real quick, I know earlier in this year we mulched up all those logs and stuff we had up the landfill.
Mhm.
I know we mentioned at one point in time we may be able to, if people want to get some of that stuff. I don't know if we want to address that tonight or some other day, but you know.
Yeah, I
don't
think
know
we'd
how
have
you
to
wanna
talk
go.
to Carl and come up with some sort of plan. The last thing we want to do
Yeah.
is start crowding people into anywhere right now. We got enough on our plate.
That's true
but
too.
we could talk
Okay.
to Carl and maybe work something out. It would be nice to be able, you know, to be able to give it to people and to get rid of it.
Yeah. No, I talked to Carl today about it. I just figured I'd bring it up tonight too. But I'll talk to him in the near future. I guess I think probably a good thing to wait a little while on it anyway.
Yeah, I think we have to. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I keep referring to the 15th of the month, but that's when the governor's going to come out with a plan for partial reopening of the state. He's going to designate areas. So there'll be a lot of information out after the 15th, I believe. All right, building and land acquisition, you know, the town hall project continues. We're making great progress. You're going to see a couple of one change order tonight and one additional piece of work that we decided to go ahead with, which will be the generator hookup. But we're going to be picking up paint colors, and before you know it, we'll be back in. Hopefully we can all meet together in there.
That'd be swell.
That would be good. But I say, you know, they're doing a really nice job, and it's just going to be such a huge improvement. You know, we're going to be launched into the 21st century all at once. We're coming from the 1800s, and we're going to be in the 21st century. So it'll be great to have the elevator. We'll have full handicapped accessibility. Persons with disabilities will be able to get to the meetings. Plus, you know, you'll have a real set of stairs. The old set was more like a ladder. And then, you know, we'll have handicapped accessible bathrooms. We'll have a nice, really nice meeting area. Finally have a conference room that we can have smaller meetings in, or, you know, any number of things can go on there. But I think it's going to be a much more pleasant work atmosphere. So I'm happy with the progress and still very pleased with the contractor. John, you want to add anything, or?
I haven't been there this week. I'm going to stop by there tomorrow. I got some time available, so.
All right.
I might stop in.
Yeah, but it's going well. And so we still look to be done by late fall. Cemetery committee.
Obviously, we've talked on the phone. We're having discussions that way. We obviously have stopped any work, obviously, in the cemeteries. In fact, John Benjamin reached out to me again just recently, and I informed them that we still have to wait on that. We will obviously, due to no Memorial Day parade, and obviously I won't have the scouts in the cemeteries putting up the flags, but we will individually do that ourselves so that we do honor our vets regardless of the parade situation. And we will continue to discuss issues, take a look, just make sure everything is generally okay until we're ready to reopen again. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, if John wants to work by himself, he can.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, if he's just going out by himself, if he has a stone he wants to work on or something, you know, on a project basis, he could do that, but we can't have more than one person, obviously doing the social distancing, but if he's alone, he can work on them.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Hey, Mike, if you need any help putting those flags up, let me know. I'll give you a hand.
All
Yeah,
right. Thanks, Bob.
Putnam County Legislator. Any report? We're gonna have to start getting Nancy in on these meetings. I don't know if she's getting the invites or not, so my apologies to Nancy for that. She's been doing a lot of work. I know I speak to Nancy almost every day. We email every single day. I know she's over at the county, you know, fighting for us every day. So we appreciate the work she's been doing for us. She did get us some PPE to town, so that was good. You know, we got some masks, we got gloves, we got hand sanitizer for our people. So that's been a good turn for us. But with that, our thanks to Nancy. Agenda.
Okay. The first item is a resolution approving the following one change order for the town hall renovation project in the amount of $7,216.68, and that is mezzanine coverage for S&L Plumbing and Heating.
So this was to do with the sprinkler system, right, John?
Yes, yeah. I just was a little concerned about the amount for what they were sprinkling. I did speak with Greg Warner. He spoke with Justin again, and I guess it's an appropriate amount. So
That's what they both said. I did the same thing because they had the same concerns, especially after the last time. But I guess the sprinkler piping is a little more expensive. The work's a little trickier because it's, you know, fire suppression. So.
And it's a commercial, and it's a dry system too, because it's an unconditioned area. So it adds cost to it. So. Yeah.
So we have confirmation by the architect. We have confirmation by our sidewalk superintendent there, Greg Warner. John and I have both looked at it. It's been discussed, so I'm comfortable entertaining a motion on that resolution. Could I get a motion on the resolution approving that change order?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you.
Next item is a resolution approving the following one change order for the town hall renovation project in the amount of $10,442.56. And that's
So this isn't really a classic change order. This is an addition of work that we did. We figure with all the things that are going on, we probably should have a generator at town hall. This isn't committed to the generator, but in doing the groundwork for that now, we can make a decision about the generator later on. But if you don't put the transfer switch in now and the disconnect, then later on it's going to cost you a lot more, and there's going to be disruptive work. They have to turn the power off. They got to probably cut into the walls. So since we're doing the project now, we feel like it's worth setting the stage for a generator in the future. John, you agree with me on that?
I do. In the past, we have run our emergency operations center out of the North Highlands Firehouse because they do have a backup generator. It would be nice to, to hub that directly at town hall, and we could set up on a more permanent basis, either at town hall or in the building department. So it would be a great addition to have a generator in the future, and our employees wouldn't have to go home when we have a power failure. We could keep them all right there working.
Maybe it's about that. Yeah, and I think the fact that we have a conference room now, if we did want to set up an emergency operations center, that we'd be able to run it from there with the generator. And I spoke to other supervisors. All the other town halls have generators.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, the building could actually serve as a shelter as well, if a short-term or comforting station. We have a shelter at the recreation center, but if we were to lose power in a village and people couldn't get out of the village, we could put people upstairs.
Yeah, there's a lot of rationale for doing it. So
Yep.
Again, it's not really a change order. It was just something we had decided early on we probably wouldn't do, but as things have progressed, seems like more and more of a good idea. So could I get a motion approving that change order?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye.
I definitely agree. It's a good decision to do.
Yeah.
The next item is a resolution authoring the return of escrow for the Ellis timber harvest.
Okay, we have the supporting documentation. Max went out and looked at it. Max being our conservation officer, went out and looked at the site. Carl went out and looked at the road, so there's been no damage. There's no reason to hold on to the escrow any longer. They did what they said they would do, and they cleaned up the site. So again, Max Garfinkel was happy enough with the way things were to authorize us to return the escrow. So could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you.
The next item is a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign the TP 584 regarding Glencliff North, and this is non-proton.
So I've already signed this. This was so that the Garrison Institute could do a lot line adjustment, I believe it was, but it has really nothing to do with the town. But since we're a property owner there or occupier, we're a property owner there, and we abut that property that was once all one piece, any changes to the lease or any changes to any of the documents there, the surveys, all parties, all interested parties need to sign on. So this is purely a formality for us. Doesn't cost us anything and doesn't change our situation at Recreation. So could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Next is a resolution approving the contract to hire Highlands Architecture for the preparation of plans for the new Philipstown Highway Garage.
As you heard me speak earlier about the highway garage, we've been working with Justin Caker from Highland Architecture at Town Hall. It's been an absolute pleasure working with him. We did seek out 2 proposals. The other proposal was considerably higher. And so for good reason, we're going to go with Justin. Not to say that, there aren't plenty of qualified people, architects and planners in this town, but Justin happens to be one of them. And he gave a lower price, so we are going to continue with him. We're hoping that his part in this won't be as involved as it's been at Town Hall. There was early on a lot of meetings at Town Hall in the early days, but now things have calmed down just as we projected they would. Once the wallboard went up, then things are pretty much done. I imagine there'll be some other things to attend to when we get to the outside of the building, but with the highway garage, he's laid out a whole program of how he'll approach it, what needs to be done, the preparation of documents, including the contract documents, the bid documents, so we can go out and get bids for this garage. We had a meeting last week. I know he was up there today taking some measurements, so we do have to replace that garage. There's no doubt about it. You've all had an opportunity to review his pricing. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $90,000 to prepare all the documentation, the plans, to meet the seeker process, and then to go out to bid. And we'll probably also be running this by Ron Gaynor. He's done a lot of this work, so it would be good to get his input on it. But again, I think we all realize we have to do something at that highway garage. It's just at this point, it's a hazard. So, and again, we have the money in the budget. This will have no impact to taxes locally. We will still meet the cap. And hopefully we can get it going again in, I would say we're hoping to start by midsummer. So with that, could I get a motion on the resolution authorizing us to hire Highlands Architecture?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
The next item is a resolution reappointing the following to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 5-year term. Both Vincent Sistone and Granite Frisenda, both terms to expire March 31st, 2025.
So Vinny Sistone has been on the planning board or the zoning board for a really long time. He's a good member. I went through and read some of the transcripts and watched some of the meetings recently. And, you know, I'd had, everybody eventually runs their course, as will I. I mean, you can't be on a board forever. But I think right now, it's a critical time to have the voice of experience on there, and Vinny certainly has the experience. I was impressed with his recent handling of one case down on Route 9D. And I'm glad I went and looked at transcripts and read through it, because he certainly was a voice of reason during that, and sticking to the paradigm within which the zoning board should operate. He was professional about it. He knows what the zoning board is supposed to do. He knows the mandate of the zoning board. It was clear to me from the transcripts that he was staying in his lane, which is what we want people to do when they're on any board. Boards have a mandate. They need to operate within that. They don't go off into personal opinion, and you certainly don't turn on the home team, which is the town of Philipstown, and our building inspector and our code enforcement officer. So people need to remember that if they want to stay on these boards, because you serve at the pleasure of the town board. So stay in your lane. Remember the rules of zoning. Remember your mandate. So with that, I would be in favor of reappointing Vincent Sistone if everybody else would. So,
I agree. Vinny has been on there a long time, and he does have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And like you said, everybody runs their course at some point, but it's a sensitive time right now, and I think it's important for him to stay on there. He does come prepared. I think people that are on these boards for so long start developing opinions before cases are heard out. And we have to be very careful, like you said, to follow the guidelines of our zoning and not personal opinion. But I think it's important for him to stay on right now and to be a part of this upcoming cases.
yeah. Yeah. And you being the liaison would know that better than anyone else. But I've said my piece. But with that, could I get a motion reappointing Vincent Sistone to a 5-year term expiring March 31st, 2025?
So
I'll
moved.
move on.
Second.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I vote aye. Thank you. The next is Grant Frisenda. I know Grant had to recuse himself from this most recent case before the zoning board. It's not that big a deal. At least he was sensible enough to recuse himself. He's young. He's been on for a while. If it becomes more of an issue, then we'd have to revisit it. If a person needs to recuse himself on a regular basis, then that's a problem. But for now, I'd be in favor of reappointing Grant also. I mean, John says he's a good member. You know, again, he wasn't in the transcripts from this most recent complicated case, but I would be in favor of reappointing him. Could I get a motion on the resolution reappointing Granite Frisenda to the ZBA?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Next item is a resolution accepting the Stormwater MS4 annual report for the town of Philipstown from March 2019 through March 9th, 2020.
Something we are mandated to do every year. And the Conservation Board submits the report. Town Board has a chance to review it. It's basically a synopsis of what went on during the entire year. We really do appreciate the Conservation Board. They do a lot of valuable work here in town. As you can see just from the former item on the agenda with the escrow return, they monitor things like timber harvest. They do all our environmental work locally, and they're a dedicated bunch. And Mike Leonard above, is also included in that group. So Mike makes sure this happens every year. Mike, do you want to comment at all on the MS4 report?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Obviously, I want to give a lot of kudos to Max Garfinkel, the wetlands inspector, for preparing the report. There is obviously a three-headed group at the top. Also, Call for Senda Highway does a tremendous amount of work cleaning out hundreds of drains, all not just in the MS4, which is mostly located in the southern end of town, but in all of the town. Because if we get hit with a storm, and they're not taken care of, we're in serious trouble. We will have flooding very fast. So it doesn't get seen sometimes, but there's a tremendous amount of work done by highway and the crews to keep these open, to inspect them. We have an issue down on Sprout Brook. Recently, I talked to Max this week about some illegal draining into the Sprout Brook, which we're dealing with right now. Obviously, we've had illegal dumpings, and of course, we monitor and react to anything that happens in the town right away, because it can have impacts, including businesses, which may take actions that are not authorized, and therefore we end up with ramifications from that. So it is an involved program. There's a lot of people, as you mentioned, involved with it, and my thanks to them for helping again put through a very productive year. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to all the members. With that, could I get a motion on the resolution accepting the Stormwater MS4 annual report?
So moved.
Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. One thing along that line, I know Bobby and John both helped out with a water quality study in Clove Creek, and we did get some of the results of that, and it was really promising. I mean, we worry about that area because you have Clove Creek in a constricted area that's also sort of an industrial corridor. But the water quality in Clove Creek is holding its own, and there's a lot of good indications there with microinvertebrates. So thanks to Bobby and John for getting out there and doing some of that field work.
Yeah, it was fun, to tell you the truth, and I learned something as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, I never knew any of those things existed, to be quite honest, in that stream, and I used to play in that stream every day when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you, all the time we spent in that stream, we didn't know
Yeah.
that was there.
yeah,
All the
and
macro-
I was surprised at how the water's in pretty good shape. Surprised, I thought it wouldn't be as good. So it's
Yeah,
good,
and I mean,
very good.
it's a
Very
good
good
trout
Really,
stream. So
It
it's
didn't change throughout it seemed pretty standard from all the way from Glenwood right through the town, which is interesting. You would think with the
That's
corridor,
amazing.
the Route 9 corridor, it would have been a little tough, but it
yeah.
was okay.
Well, we'll stay vigilant and keep it that way.
Yeah.
All right, next item.
Next item is a resolution authorizing the town Climate Smart Communities Coordinator to submit a consolidated funding application for NYSDEC 2019 Municipal Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Grant.
And so this is for a quick charging station. 2 vehicles could be charged at once. There's been discussion with the village. There's been various discussions where we're going to place this thing. We're probably going to wind up putting it at Town Hall and running it there. But there isn't a huge cost to us to getting this thing installed. We will do some work with our highway department to do the trenching and get the unit installed. But a lot of other communities have done these. They've been pretty successful with them. It seems to be the wave of the future, electronic vehicles. They certainly are everywhere now. And I'm a big proponent of this. I would love to see them everywhere. I can't wait till there's an electronic pickup truck. You can't get one yet. But our thanks to Roberto Muller for pursuing this. He's the Climate Smart Coordinator, but he's also doing a lot of extra work, as Mike referred to earlier. He really is having an impact in town and keeping us honest. He reminds us of how important this is, how important the issues of climate change are, and this can help offset some of that. So we'll end up, again, installing this unit at Town Hall, and then people will be able to charge their cars there. And hopefully, sooner or later, the town is the owner of an electric vehicle. So,
Any idea where you're going to put it by the Town Hall, Rich?
we haven't nailed it down yet, but it'll probably be in back by the parking area, somewhere back there.
Just got to make sure that when the morning comes, that there's not a car there, so our employees can park there. That's the only thing.
Yeah, we'll get it out. We won't block any of the egress with it, but we can figure that out. It's
Yeah.
right now getting the grant to go ahead and do it is the important part.
Yep.
So we still have
That's a
time to
great
lay it
idea.
out.
Mhm.
With all the work that's going on at Town Hall, we wouldn't want to put it in right now anyway. So, could I get a
No,
motion
of
on the
course not.
resolution authorizing Roberto Mueller to apply for that grant?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
Uh,
I vote
Oh,
aye.
is this a roll call vote or no? I saw something. No?
No, I don't think
No.
so. It's just-
Okay. I just see everyone's name at the bottom here.
The next item is a resolution approving the lease for property located at 345 Main Street in Nelsonville from Whoville LLC for temporary use by the Town Highway Department.
This is our good friend, Rich Frost, great guy, very community-minded, giving us an excellent rate. So we can move the highway garage over into Nelsonville for now while we are constructing the new highway garage. Been really easy to work with Rich, as it always is. Terrific person. So it'll afford us the opportunity to get everything out of the highway garage, do the demolition on that garage all at once. We had thought about doing it in stages. It just became a real headache. So with this, we can move over there, have 2 bays, and keep the people inside. It'll be a nicer setting, even in the interim. Could be a little tricky, some of the logistics about it, but I talked to Carl. We're gonna work it out, and hopefully we won't be in there for that long if we time this thing right.
I think it's going to save us a considerable amount of money too by not trying to phase the existing garage. Although we're going to be paying a lease to Rich and Renata. Don't leave out Renata.
I
'cause we'll
won't
be
leave
in trouble. So they're partners in this, but yeah, they're very easy to work with. Basically a handshake would have worked, but we did process the lease. They did sign it. So I think it's a great move. It'll free up a lot of room up at the highway garage for the construction. And basically it's new construction versus a renovation at this point. So we did go through this with the North Towns Firehouse and phasing it because we had no option. And it became tricky, especially when it got later in the year and we had to heat half of it and keep it warm. So I think this will work out in the long run. It is a little more work for them to move the stuff down to Nelsonville. It is close. I mean, it worked out well that it was close. So I think it's a great idea, and we couldn't be renting from better people.
No, and sooner or later it had to happen. So
Yes,
let's just
well overdue.
go all in now. And there'll be a
So-
good house cleaning up there.
Yeah.
You get
So
some big-
is the plan for this, use that for main, for the mechanics to work on the equipment, Rich?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
right, we can't keep all the equipment down there, right? Just
We're
everything's
gonna
still
get
gonna
some
stay up there.
storage trailers.
No, the trucks will remain up at the garage.
Right. That's what I
But the-
figured.
The mechanics will be down at at Rich's
Mhm.
or at Whoville, excuse me. And I know Carl was working with Andrew to get some wiring done for some of the mechanical stuff, welders and so on. So, but
It'll be down
the space
close
is
to
pretty well
the Frosty Freeze.
frosty. I like Whoville.
Will the salt remain up at the old garage?
Everything's gonna remain up there. This is
Everything's
just
considered- Okay.
purely for mechanical purposes.
Okay.
So,
The guys will report also to the existing highway facility, excluding the mechanics. The mechanics will be going down, but the drivers and operators will all be reporting up to the existing highway garage.
exactly. And this will necessitate getting a couple of storage trailers, but also getting another trailer where the men can congregate, in the winter, so they're not standing around or just stuck in the trucks. They can go inside and have a cup of coffee and warm up. So,
Right.
A lot of reasons to move quickly, though.
Yes.
So with that, could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All
All in
Second.
favor? I vote
Aye.
aye. Thank you.
Next item is a discussion regarding support for the enhancement of a universal health coverage system as proposed in the New York Health Act.
Okay, I'm tilting my head sideways to look at this. Universal healthcare has been an idea that's kicked around forever. I mean, a lot of countries have it, and now it's being proposed in New York State. I don't know how close we are to it. I don't see, this is me speaking personally, I don't see an issue with supporting the effort. There are a lot of good reasons to support it. If you had universal healthcare in New York, you'd probably have lower cost coverage, more people would get coverage, people wouldn't be using the emergency room as their physician. And in light of all the things that are currently going on with the COVID crisis, it also makes a lot of sense. This was brought to our attention by Sandy McElway in Cold Spring, and I think it's a good initiative. It's something I want the board to consider before we obviously go ahead and throw our full-fledged support. There are a couple things in this resolution I would change, but fundamentally, I do support the effort.
Rich,
I think
we could,
I agree. I think wholeheartedly I agree with this effort, especially with COVID-19. It's demonstrated that there are many people who are falling between the gaps. So I think it's much needed.
can we maybe have someone come in and talk a little? I mean, I don't know much about healthcare. I'd like to make a informative decision on this. Maybe you could get someone to speak to us about this at all, maybe? Is that possible?
We could have somebody come online and talk to us about it. Again, our supporting the initiative isn't going to set policy, that's for certain.
Understood, but I mean, I mean, these numbers are out here, we don't know how accurate they are, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, we're
I
going.
think,
Go ahead, Judy.
well, we can, the co-sponsors, I think Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff is a co-sponsor legislation. So maybe she would be willing to come to a meeting and speak on it.
Or-
But I mean,
If people
Go
want to
ahead.
reach out to Sandy, she is very accessible. So if you give a call to her
Yeah.
office and speak
All right.
with her,
Maybe I'll
that
just
may
give her a
be
quick call.
a good opportunity. You know, she's right down Ostings. And, you know, I call that office once a month for various reasons. But Sandy always, if she's not there, she'll give you a call back. That's for certain.
Okay.
she's
well,
on
maybe
the
I'll-
Health Commission.
I'm sorry, what, Judy?
I'm sorry. Sandy's on the Assembly Health Committee, which passed the bill, as well as the State Senate passed the bill as well. I think they're looking for support in the executive, the governor's office.
Mhm.
All right, maybe I'll give her a call directly then.
Yeah, it's a good idea. But tonight, really, I'm just looking to let the board know my position, but also to give everybody the opportunity to look it over, educate yourself, and then, you know, maybe even before next month, we can turn this around and put our support behind it, or, you know, have another discussion about it. Anyone else? All right. So for now, we'll not table it, but we've had a small discussion here. There's obviously, it's like, as Bobby alluded to, it is a very complicated issue. Healthcare, obviously not a small agenda item. But again, it's just, to be clear, we're not setting any policy here in the town of Philipstown regarding universal coverage. Fundamentally, I do think it's a good idea, though. So.
Richard, I was muted there for a moment, but I would, you know, I look at a lot of the names that are on the list, and there's a lot of very smart people that are on the list on the list. So I would agree that we could sign into the initiative, but I also think we need a little more information about it as well. So if we could get some sort of presentation, or we will reach out to Sandy, I guess would work as well.
Yeah, she is a wealth of information regarding healthcare in New York State. That is, obviously, she sits on the committee, so. Sounds like football's on or something. All right, we'll definitely revisit this initiative in the coming weeks, but I did want to get it on the agenda now to have this discussion.
The next item is to schedule any workshops or meetings. We have the next monthly town board meeting scheduled for June 4th. As of right now, it will be a Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have anything that's really pressing? I mean, we can have another workshop on this issue. Maybe we do a round robin with some emails or some phone calls after people have had the opportunity to speak to Assemblywoman Galiff. And then we can talk about it again and maybe meet in the interim and either, you know, support this or support a modified version of it.
Sounds good.
Sounds
All
good.
right, so I'll look to hear from you guys with regard to this, and then we could schedule a Zoom session. Doesn't have to be something prolonged, but just to revisit this. There is one thing today. I saw a letter that was written on behalf of all Putnam County residents by the county executive, calling for a swift return to normalcy in New York State. You know, that's a tough road to hoe right now. In this county, less than 5% of all residents have been tested. And of the residents that have been tested, 26% of them have come back positive. So we've done very little testing in this county, but the percentages that come back from those tests are high.
Yeah, definitely.
The trend in the county is flattening, but we're still getting more cases every single day. We did have a death yesterday in the county, so it's far from over here. You can write a letter and say you want to have things reopen and everybody wants things to go back to normal. That's obvious. Everybody's tired of this. It's a strange world we find ourselves in right now. But without planning, without widespread testing, without monitoring, without tracking, without a plan in place, a letter doesn't mean anything. You know, a hasty return to formal or former activities is going to be a hasty return to a spike in cases and a lot more suffering. I am inclined to follow the governor's advice and healthcare experts' advice, not go shooting from the hip, because no one knows anything about this, and I know less than that. What I do know is there are a lot of smart people out there, and we need to follow their guidance. And I understand that, you know, businesses are suffering, but if we rush to get back to work and open things up, there's going to be a lot more suffering. There's no doubt about it. This virus doesn't discriminate, doesn't care about the weather, doesn't care about anything. It's a virus. So if you start crowding people in again, we're going to have some bad results. I wish the county executive reached out to the townships before she went drafting a letter on all of our behalves, because I disagree with the premise of her letter. And I'm more in the camp of let's proceed slowly, let's proceed methodically, let's listen to the experts, and let's try to keep people healthy. If you don't have your health, it won't matter what the economy is doing. If you're dead, it doesn't matter what the economy is doing. The last thing we want to see is an uptick in cases. So my advice to the county executives: proceed slowly, consult with the supervisors, and don't speak on our behalf until you have our blessings. Because all of New York State, all of the country, and all the world is in the same position. So,
Hey, Rich, you said someone died yesterday. There was someone who died today that lives in Cold Spring as well.
So again, it's far from over. You know,
Yeah.
if we had these numbers, if somebody came to you today and said, look, 400 people are going to die in New York State today, which is happening. But if they had told you that back in January, alarm bells would be going off, not calling for, well, let's just go about our business. Well, this crisis is not over. And I know a lot of people are working on things, and I know there's promise of a vaccine and there's promise of treatment, but none of that is out there yet. We don't have the testing in this county. We need to do a lot of testing before we can start sending people back to schools or into crowded spaces. You know, again, having tested less than 5% of the population, they got to make up a lot of ground in order to have any confidence in reopening.
Richard, I have one question. It seems like the governor continues to talk about reopening downstate, upstate. Is there any word of where Putnam will fall in that? I know Westchester obviously would be downstate, or, you know, are we?
Somewhat.
And we're kind of like in the mix. It seems like Westchester, Rockland are going to be with downstate, and they never mention Putnam. It's strange.
No, they
I'm
don't.
pretty
I don't know. I don't have any insight into that. Again, as I said earlier, the 15th of the month, there'll be some big announcements. And I imagine that at that time, there'll be some delineation. I know that, you know, certain industries are going to be able to open sooner than others. Things that are going on outside. Yeah, I know you have a lot of landscapers itching to get back to work. I don't blame them. And if people are able to set up a program and follow protocol and take the measures that need to be taken for distancing, for safety, for personal protective equipment, you can move slowly towards something. But until we have these plans in place, I think it's just a formula for disaster to go think that, I can already feel it. People, the weather turns and people feel like, it's over. Well, it's not over. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Social distancing has worked. That's the only thing that works. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think we're pretty sure, John, and I think we're part of Westchester and Rockland County. I was
Yeah.
on a meeting yesterday with the Businesses Council, and I'll be on a call tomorrow with them as well, but I'm pretty sure we're grouped with Rockland and Westchester County.
We
Yeah,
are. We're in
I
the
think
we're
we
in the
are.
Mid Hudson group.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that there's going to be some gradation. That's one thing I have heard. We're not going to be solely thrown in with New York City because that doesn't make any sense. And also, we can talk to our elected officials. Again, talking to Sandy Galiff, talking to Sue Serino about these things and about how we would feel we want to be positioned. But this needs to be a slow rolling start. And John and I both know. Look, construction's suffering. We
Yeah.
About 90% of my crew is laid off, and we had a lot of people on a big job site, and we don't have that now. It's basically quiet. We're down to a couple of people. I got one carpenter working, which that's not sustainable for us either. But what's also not sustainable is if you get thousands of people getting ill and you see the emergency rooms flooding again, that's not going to help anybody. That's not going to help the economy long term. It's not going to help anyone. So we need to look to a time when they have a treatment or a vaccine. That's really when this will be over. Or if people have the idea that they're just looking for everyone getting sick and a herd immunity, go ahead and state that. I'm not a proponent of that. I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think anybody's life or safety should be sacrificed.
I think.
And I think we put our seniors at risk if we do that, because I think this disease, as we've seen, this epidemic has hit the senior community very hard and the elderly. And I think if we don't wait until the proper time, that we risk hurting more of the elderly who are in our own community, and someone else's father or grandfather or grandmother might be at risk. So we might not be at risk, or we might have immunity. The elderly and the most vulnerable among us might be hard hit by this, and they have been hard hit. So those are facts. That's not, speculation. It's a fact.
Yeah, and I would second Judy's point, saying, look, you're not wearing a mask so much for yourself. You're wearing it for, an older relative, your grandmother, your grandfather. The last thing you want to do is be the cause of someone's illness or someone's demise. That's just not a good position to be in. We don't want to do that to people. So we do need to take the precautions. We need to keep doing what we're doing because it's working. And I imagine that there can be some lightening of restrictions, but again, it's got to be programmatic. You can't wave a magic wand and say, well, we want to go back. That's childish. You can't stamp your feet on the ground and make a virus go away. It doesn't happen. So,
Well, I think we all want to go back, but it's when it's safe to go back, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're in obviously a difficult area. If you take a look at the governor's report each day, I think the biggest indicator on there is the death rate, which in the last week has stayed at 230 people every day. I think that tells it. No other place in this country is suffering along those lines. So, and I think the clear point is, unless those numbers start to seriously drop, we have to take that seriously into consideration, despite the fact that obviously there's a lot of people that want to go back to work.
yes, and a lot of people need to go back to work. A lot of people need money, and I know the federal unemployment assistance is helping a lot of people. A lot of people have struggled to get it, but it's a necessity. You need to support the population. We're the wealthiest country in the world, the greatest country in the world. We need to be able to support our people, through anything. So, but with that, we're hoping that the county rethinks their position and moves slowly. We don't want anyone getting sick. And then again, like I said, we'll schedule a workshop after we talk about the universal health care. You guys can do some investigation on that. But can we get the code enforcement monthly report now?
Richard, before I do the report, I see that Nancy's joined us and she's raised her hand. So do you mind if I let her speak?
No, no, please, by all means.
Um,
Hi there. So I can't play my video, but
okay.
now.
It was on before. Oh, there you go.
Sorry to be late. I'm sorry I didn't know.
Hi.
Hi, Nancy.
Thank you. And I did hear a lot of what you were saying on the county level and understand completely. And I have to apologize. I was just sent a photo of an ad that was placed in today's paper with the county seal, which is really only reserved for legal documents. And it was used for an ad that we are ready to reopen and signed by the legislature, which I am. So you can obviously see what I'm up against. This is democracy that has failed us, and there is no democracy. I didn't approve of an ad to go in the paper to say we're ready to open. We're not ready to open. We are ready to, talk about it, and obviously people are suffering. Everything that you said, it's devastating on every level. You know what? I've had firsthand experience for government failing the people in looking at the dollar sign instead of looking at human lives. And that happened to me personally, and I will not approve of it happening to the people of Putnam. I don't know if you talked about this before I got on, but there's core criteria for opening. I know we don't meet the core criteria for opening. The diagnostic testing capacity. Each region must have the capacity to conduct 30 diagnostic tests for every 1,000 residents per month. I don't know that we've done, I know the health department specifically itself hasn't done diagnostic testing. Private companies are doing it. We don't have that data. I haven't gotten those answers. Contact tracing capacity. That's one of the core criteria for opening. People who I've talked to who have COVID told me their story about what they were interviewed about, and a lot of them had no contact tracing. So the capacity for the contact tracing in our region must have a baseline of 30 contact tracers for every 100,000 residents. I haven't met a contact tracer. So those are just two of the core requirements. The others involve healthcare capacity to handle potential surge in cases. We must have 30% of our total hospital and ICU beds available. And we must have 14-day decline for new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. So I haven't gotten that. We don't have that data. That's all.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to say. Obviously, I'm a little wound up here because
No, we certainly don't. And it's proven. I mean, all you have to do is look at the county's website, look at the COVID dashboard. It's proven right there. The statistics, the numbers don't lie. So we're not ready to open. We are not. And there's no plan in place. So you can't open without a plan. It's a recipe for disaster. So, again, you can be childish about this and suffer the consequences, or you can move methodically and get the core criteria in place.
Yeah, and you can work with your local elected officials and give them the information that they need to give to their constituents and their communities, and it's just not happening. So I will continue to try to get what information I can get. I get it from many other sources, and it's better and good information. So I'll just continue, and whatever you need, please reach out to me.
And I want to say thank you, Nancy, for getting us the PPE to town, and for being such a great representative for us over there. It's the only way we get anything is through Nancy. The only thing that comes to this town from the county, information, equipment, all of those things are through Nancy. So it's without Nancy, we'd be the orphan stepchild.
Well, we still are. It's hard for me to get things, and it's hard for me to get information. But I think I just have to continue. And
yes.
And there's nothing wrong with asking the questions I ask. For some reason, they're perceived as, not being appropriate. There's very specific questions I asked the legislature and the county executive. I have a book of memos that if you want me to share someday after, it'll be the COVID story of Putnam County. And the answers I get back, like go to Amazon for your face masks, Richard.
Can't get them there.
Thank you, Nancy.
We're not rushing.
Thank you guys. Thank you for taking care of the people of Philipstown. You do such a good job at it. You do such a great job.
All right. With that, we'll move on to the code enforcement report.
So the monthly report for April 2020 for the town of Philipstown. Fees collected $16,764. Total number of permits issued 15. New 1 or 2 family dwellings 1. Additions, alterations, or repairs to residential buildings 1. Additions, alterations, or repairs to commercial buildings 1. All other permits, pools, sheds, decks, plumbing, HVAC, etc. 12. Number of certificate of occupancy 9. Number of stop work orders issued 6. Inspections of public assembly 1, and inspections of commercial occupancies 1. And I did receive a report from the village this month for April. The fees collected by the village of Cold Spring, $300. The total number of permits issued 2. Additions, alterations, or repairs to residential buildings 1. All other permits, pools, decks, sheds, plumbing, HVAC 1. Number of certificates of occupancy 1, and number of stop work orders issued 1.
All right. Our thanks to Greg Warner for continuing to, do the code enforcement, collect the fees, and to keep the ship running here. One thing I neglected to mention was we did, as everyone knows, we got an initial donation to the town to assist people in need for food and medicine of $100,000, which is just incredible. Last week, we did receive from 3 additional donors an additional $130,000. So we're able to continue doing the things we've been doing to assist people in the entire area. Yesterday, I delivered $10,000 in ShopRite cards over to Putnam Valley because they don't even have a food pantry. They had opened their food pantry. One of the workers at the food pantry got sick and passed away, unfortunately. It's just terrible. So I met with Sam Oliveri over there. He was, nearly in tears. He's just really, really appreciative. And wherever we're going with these things, everyone, they certainly do appreciate the effort by everybody here on the board, delivering cards, delivering meals. We've been to Carmel, Putt Valley, Newburgh, Beacon, Philipstown, and going to reach out to Peekskill also to try to see what we can do. We do anticipate some further donations too, so the program can continue for a while. I was in Newburgh yesterday. Also, tomorrow I'll be back over there at Recap. They're providing meals to people in need. Lodger Meals is providing meals to people in need, and these people are working 7 days a week to make sure that no one goes hungry. Our Drug World gift card program has been a huge success, so people have taken full advantage of that, and we'll continue to support those efforts. But we are so fortunate that we have that sort of generosity in this town for people to step up and give really large donations. I mean, $50,000, $70,000, $10,000, $100,000. That's unheard of in other communities. And this is a wealthy county. There are other towns where that could be happening, but here people, they just step up and do it. So it's amazing. Thank you to them.
And thank you to the volunteers. Yep.
Yeah, everybody I deliver them to them. They're very appreciative of us doing what we're doing every day. Myself or Johnny or whoever else delivers them, and everyone's very appreciative and couldn't thank us enough.
Yeah, it's a tough time, and the last thing you want to do is have somebody stress out. They already don't have a job. They don't have money. If you don't have money for food, there's nothing more stressful. It's just it's unbelievable. So you certainly don't want to add to that burden by placing any barriers to access for these cards. I want to remind people that we are here for you, that we do have this program ongoing. It is continuing, and it will continue for the foreseeable future. So if you need help, reach out to us. You can call Town Hall 265-5200, and somebody will be there to answer the call.
And we have 88 volunteers, Richard. 88
Yeah.
people stepped up. They're there to help. So if people need assistance with grocery shopping or picking up their medications, please give us a call.
Yeah, we have more volunteers than we know what to do with. So again, as Judy said, let's have people take advantage of it. Anything else from the board?
On a lighter note and a happy note, I would just like to congratulate Ann and Ethan Gallagher for being the first grandparents just recently.
Aha, that is big news. Yeah, that was great. Yep. And my stepdaughter, Karen's daughter, is expecting a baby in August.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep.
well,
So it's
congratulations.
exciting.
Congratulations.
A little trepidation there, but it'll be, we're really looking forward to that.
And I'd just like to thank Tara and Teresa for taking those calls from people at Town Hall and everyone who's taking the calls from all the people that are calling in who need
Yeah.
assistance.
Thank you so much. I know the people appreciate it. And to Ann and Susan for handling getting the cards and doing things like that, going to the bank to get the certified checks. It was a little shocking how long it took to get those right. I have to say that. It was like pulling teeth, but we got over that. All right. Vacancies. It's good to see we have 0. Approval of vouchers, general. Anyone?
Hold on, everybody's
Oh.
muted.
Oh, everybody's muted.
Everybody unmute.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. I just want to say that I'm really relying on the board too to, go through and monitor these vouchers because, when we're apart, we don't get as much opportunity to interact and talk about it. But keeping a keen eye on the vouchers is more important than ever right now. Highway,
So moved.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Park District,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Water District,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion to adjourn.
Nope, before
The audience.
Discussion.
we have Nat Prentice has his hand up. So I'm
Oh,
just-
sorry, Nat.
Nope, that's all right. Hold on one.
He's on.
Seems yet.
There he is.
There you are. There you are,
we go.
Nat.
Gosh,
Hello, Nat.
I hope you guys are okay. Wonderful seeing you. I'm sorry it's such a tough time, and I'm not going to add to that burden at all. I just wanted you to know that the comprehensive plan group continues to meet, will meet, is dedicated to getting something useful done this year, COVID-19 or not, and we'll hope to do that. I did want to make you aware of one special meeting that we're going to have in case any of you are interested in attending. I just happened to run into Jonathan Rose the other day, and I was telling him about our comprehensive plan update, and he volunteered to meet with us on the subject of affordable housing, just on the thought that perhaps he will have an idea or two, he being a national, maybe even international expert on the subject. So maybe we'll learn something in that process. I mean, that's awfully difficult subject, not a lot we can do, but he may have an idea. So I'll make everybody aware of when that is. It's going to be on a Friday afternoon, so it's not necessarily convenient, but we'll write it up, and maybe Mike and Bob will be able to attend.
Yep. That
would be great.
I would like to join that if I
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, every conversation you have with Jonathan Rose, you will walk away with some more information. He is an international expert on affordable housing. That's his life's work. So, and he's written a book on it. So we are, again, just so fortunate to have expertise like that locally. And he spoke at the first series of comprehensive plan meetings, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and
I can remember at that time.
Yeah, as soon as I mentioned the subject, he said, well, I did some work for you way back when, so, or the town, so he's anxious to participate.
That's great. Nat, thank you so much. Nat and I had a good conversation a week or so ago, and he filled me in on a lot of the workings of the group. So we really appreciate your continuing on, even though it's a little more difficult at this time.
Well, we just want, even if it's just a list of priorities on one page, we're going to get something done that's useful. The problem is every time we start getting a little work done, a new issue arises. I mean, but we will get something done.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that. All right, unless anyone else has anything, I would.
Someone else put their hand up. Ricky?
Yeah, yeah, Rick G.
Oh, I don't have a hand up on my screen.
Oh,
Oh, I saw it on mine. Ricky
Yeah,
it's
Ann.
on it's in the chat.
It's in the chat. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
I know it's late and you guys have already had a long meeting. I did discuss this a little bit with Michael and we discussed this a little bit at our Philipstown meeting. In general, it feels like the buck keeps getting passed down in terms of plans that are going to be required to keep our society safe in what I believe from everything that I've read is going to be a long, hard slog in terms of this COVID experience. And so if you look at the states, what the governor posted yesterday in terms of the requirements, they're not that specific. And I don't know whether the county is going to get more granular. But my question is, does Philipstown need to be establishing its own plan? And or when you get down to the granular level of are stores going to be safe? What happens when things open up? I believe that we are going to be, we're going to have a lot of people in Cold Spring and Philipstown because there's not going to be football, there's not going to be baseball, there's not going to be movies, but there is going to be the outdoors, and we're not going to be able to keep the outdoors closed, and we're not going to be able to close our streets. And stores are going to start to slowly and gradually open. And so I think that, and there are stores in town now that I personally do not believe are following even the baseline social distancing protocols. I'm not going to mention any of them specifically. But I think our town needs a plan. And I think we need to talk about how we're going to, what are we going to do with all the people? And, does our street need to be going one way on one side of the street and one way on the other? Do we need to mark off 6-foot sections on our sidewalks? There are towns that are talking about shutting off the street on the weekends so that the restaurants can put their tables out into the middle of the street, which would require us to figure out how to bus people into the town. And I think that these are the kind of conversations that we need to be having at the town level, because if we're waiting for the white knight, they're not coming from Washington. I don't know whether they'll get that granular at the state level. And I think that if we want to have a safe community, both for the people who live here Monday to Friday, and for what I think is the potential onslaught on the weekends, I think it's going to have to come from us and from our working with our Chamber of Commerce and getting more detailed plans. What is the depot going to do? Who's going to approve whether the depot chairs and tables are set up in the right way so that it's following the baseline rules? Are we thinking that Governor Cuomo is going to do that, or that Mary Ellen Odell is going to go and inspect it? Or is the town going to need to have a safety brigade and rules in place and ways of, workflow of how people walk through the town?
Well, I hear what you're saying, Rick. The town and the village are obviously two separate entities. I'm not trying to pass the buck. I've spoken to the mayor every single day since this has started. Legislator Montgomery and I have met with the mayor. But as far as what happens in the village, the town government does not have a mandate in the village. We can't tell the village what to do. We don't have a police force. We don't do enforcement. Obviously, the mayor is thinking about these things. Obviously, all three of us and the town board and everybody involved here thought hard about the crowds and crowd control in town, because that was how we got the trails closed. If, like you say, if things start opening up and people are looking for places to go, it's going to be a vacuum. We're going to get a lot of people here. We always get a lot of visitors anyway. On a regular summer day, the C Street comes in. There should be some consideration given to all of the things you mentioned. I agree wholeheartedly. But as far as the town goes, we don't have a mandate in the village. We can't tell the depot what to do. We can't tell the stores on Main Street what to do. We don't control traffic flow in the village. But I will pass along your concerns to the mayor. I share those concerns. We have these conversations all the time. It's difficult. It's difficult from a budgetary standpoint. It's difficult from a law enforcement standpoint, and it's difficult from a human nature standpoint. It's, trying to get people to do the right thing is tough. We've seen that. We saw that with all the hiking trails. People just, they don't care. They just do not care. It's apparent. But we do, and we care about our residents. So we are thinking about the safety of residents, and we are thinking about all these things. We had a lengthy discussion earlier about this. I don't know if you were on, but I disagree with a rush to open up just for the sake of opening up. But I'll speak to the mayor tomorrow, and I know that Nancy this is weighing heavy on her mind, and it's something I think about, and the board thinks about every day. But I certainly wouldn't want to see the trails open up anytime soon, because that's just going to attract more visitors. And if the more the businesses open up, the more people will come to town. There's no doubt about it. And I agree, again, the businesses that are open, I've seen some things that are frightening. People just, I won't go to certain businesses because of the behavior I've seen there. Maybe you're controlling the customer flow, but the people flowing around behind the counter, it's not good.
Yeah,
So,
I think the businesses really need to be very careful. Hopefully we talk about this tomorrow, but you have one chance to do this right. If you do something wrong, you lose a customer, they're never ever going to come back.
no.
So I think it's very, very important that people with businesses do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and they need guidance. They need guidance and support. So
What happens on when I was on Sunday, when I came in on 301, both sides of the street were lined with cars like I'd never seen before. That's part of the town also? Cold Spring has something to do with that?
with 301, that's
And
the
Boscobel and
But
the rec center and the pizza place downtown and all of those
we
things?
don't control the pizza place downtown. We do control the rec center. We don't, the rec center's closed on the weekends. No one can park in the parking lot. We've set up a barricade. We've blocked off every access to every town parcel that we possibly can. We don't control the highways, though. We have no right. We tried to, and DOT came along and took down our barricades, and we got a pretty stern reprimand about that. Law enforcement won't enforce things that aren't codified. So we can't just go willy-nilly and start throwing things around as much as we'd like to. But I have conversations with the sheriff weekly. He advised us other areas that we could block off. Regarding Fawnstuck Park, we don't have a mandate in Fawnstuck Park. Those people, the park was open and people are coming to it. So I'm not sure what to do about that. We had a meeting with the New York State Commissioner of Parks. We let him know in no uncertain terms how we felt about the number of visitors here and the unsustainable nature of it, and the fact that there needed to be more law enforcement. And I will say last weekend, they had a very, very strong presence here. I know we had a long discussion about this earlier in the meeting, but I fully anticipate that this law enforcement effort will continue for now, and that you won't see the parks opening up in the next several weeks. But as the summer progresses, I feel like there's going to be some lessening of things, and the trails are probably going to reopen. And at that point, you're right, you'll see more crowds here. But it's not as if we're not thinking about these things, and as if we're not planning for them and not lobbying on behalf of our residents to make sure that we don't become overwhelmed, because we can't have the huge crowds we have here in normal times. We just can't. We can't.
Well, the village, I live in the village, and I share your concern, Rick. It was very crowded last weekend, and I couldn't walk in, and usually I can walk into the village, but I was nervous, even though I had a face mask. you know, people were pretty close together on the sidewalks. So I don't know how we resolve that issue. It's a village planning issue. And I know it's not a town board issue, but I'm happy to go to a village meeting and talk about it as well. I think, that's one we can, if they have a Zoom meeting, I think participate.
I just from here listening to what you're saying, I don't think that this can work unless the town and the village and the state are working together. But in terms of looking at the region itself and what needs to be done, I do think that the Philipstown board could be driving that car, or the Philipstown board and Cold Spring board working together to come up with a safe Philipstown plan. Because they're going to need, the town of Cold Spring is going to need Philipstown for what and how to deal with the overflow and how to work out that kind of in and out that's going to be required to keep everything safe.
Again, I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying, Rick, but we've been coordinating with the state since January, weekly. I have conversations with elected officials. I have conversations with county officials, conversations with the New York State Parks Commissioner, conversations with law enforcement. So it's not as if we're not aware and we're not planning. We are, but our mandate only extends so far. And during times like this, you become keenly aware of that. We have been working diligently the entire time on everyone's behalf. So I don't want people to get the impression that nothing's going on. There is a ton of things going on. I mean, along with providing food for people, medicine for people, making sure they're safe, getting extra law enforcement here, getting the trails closed, trying to manage crowds.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only so much that you can do without New York State coming in and saying, look, we're going to discourage people from coming here. You can't close the roads. You can't close Route 9D unless you close off the village, and that's a village decision. People are going to continue to come here to walk around. But we do coordinate every single day. I speak to the mayor weekly. I email with the mayor every day. So I'll bring this up with him. But there's only so much you can do. You have to be realistic about this. You're not going to turn away. There's no turning back cars. You can't set up gates, physical barriers.
No.
There are things you can do to make the flow of traffic more reasonable, to try to get, as you said, people walking on opposite sides of the streets. All these things have been thought about. So far, they haven't been taken, action has been taken to that extent, but believe me, it's being thought about. So,
Okay.
All right.
Thank
With
you.
that, thanks, Rick. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I thank you. Thanks to the board. Thanks for everything you're
All right.
doing.
Thank you, and happy
Good night,
Mother's
everybody.
Day.
Yeah, happy
everybody.
Mother's.
Take care.
Everyone stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Stay.
Bye.